All right, guys, here's the situation. You've got a small business that you're supporting. Maybe it's less than 10 users. So maybe they really don't want to move to Office 365 quite yet or host their email somewhere else. Maybe they're hosting their own services. Could be a myriad of reasons why. Might seem like a strange concept to a lot of people. That's like, put it in the cloud. Well, some people don't want to, or some people don't want the expense. They don't like the idea of a subscription. And they say, I've got perfectly good stuff. Well, okay, whatever. But here's the deal. What you're looking at right now is my event viewer for one of my clients. And they're a very small business, and they host their own email, and they have their own server and stuff like that. Unfortunately, in this day and age, that's kind of a dangerous scenario. Mostly because anytime you're exposing services to the internet, those services are vulnerable to attack. And that's actually what's been happening here. Here you notice I've got a event highlighted here, a failure audit. This is an event 539, which is basically a password failure and ultimately a locked out account. You think, okay, well, so what? Big deal. The account's locked out. They hit the threshold, and the system did what it was supposed to do, which is prevent any further logons. Here's the problem. The account is not only locked out for anything on those external services like email, my user is also logged out because, well, Microsoft in their older products unified the login with Exchange so that if your emails services got hacked and the account got logged out, it also logged out the user from getting into their computer or anything else, which is a real problem. Email's bad enough, but when a user's sitting there looking at their screen, at their login screen, they're like, I can't do anything, they get a little irate. So, well, what do we do about that? Well, because this isn't quote-unquote an enterprise, and because we probably don't have a Barracuda firewall or an Iron Port or any kind of layer 6 or layer 7 filtering going on at the head end, we kind of have to fall back on some old school practices. The first practice is real simple. Don't make your usernames that easy to guess. In this case, this user's ID is a pretty common name, and it makes it simple for them to log in, but it makes it kind of a security and a less than best practice kind of situation. Because of that, for the past week, this user has been constantly getting locked out of their account. And it's all because some hackers are desperately trying to break into the server using their account. So they're running dictionary attacks. Well, the result is basically these 539 errors that lock them out and not let them be able to work, which makes them very unhappy and ultimately makes me very unhappy because I'm the one who takes the brunt of it because, well, you're the consultant, you're the sysadmin, it's your fault, obviously. So, what do we do? Well, of course, it's good that we set thresholds and that, the system's doing what it can to protect itself, but we really want to try to nip this in the bud before we even get anywhere near a server event log. So what we should be doing is we should be having active logging in place. And we do that with the means of basically using facilities that are built into most firewalls, routers, any kind of internet connected device usually has a logging facility, and it's usually syslog. And it's usually, goes over a UDP port and just dumps text messages. For example, in this case, I have the firewall here dumping to a Kiwi syslog server that's hosted over here on this box. And you can see we've already had a lot of things going on here. And that's fine. That's good for kind of a point-in-time spyglass view. But over time, unless you're going to sit here 24/7 looking at this, it's not very useful. But this is just an output of the facility we're using to pass the information to log files. And to look at log files, we should get a good log file viewer. And that's what this is. I'm looking, these are both Kiwi, which is SolarWinds now, but these are both Kiwi products. This is the log viewer. And the nice thing about this is that it actually will format it into an easy to read view, unlike Notepad or WordPad, which WordPad's a little better, Notepad's horrible. It'll make your eyes bleed. But what we do here is we take a look at these logs, and now the nice thing about this is this one can automatically update. I've got the tail function enabled, which means that any updates to this log are being instantly shown to me here. And what we're looking for in our logs, and again, this is old school, I know, but I talk a lot about patterns. I look for patterns in logs to see attacks. And when I'm talking about a pattern, I've got a beautiful example here. Now, if I go up a little further here before I started adding some blocks, you can see here that from this particular address, I was getting 50, 60 attempts to log in to the SMTP, which is the incoming mail port on this server. This is not normal. And this is where patterns come into play. And you have to know what's normal and what's not. Generally, you will not see more than 3 SMTP connections from a legitimate server, and then only if it's having trouble with a connection to you. Generally, it's 1. You will not see 60. This is not normal. This is not in normal practice. You do not see this, especially from the same address. No. What this is an active dictionary attack against this user that I showed you in the event log. He's being attacked, and trying to use his account and his credentials, and they're trying to break into the server using SMTP. Now, it used to be they went after web ports, but now the most common dictionary attack I've seen has been against port 25 SMTP and port 110 POP3. Because usually these are the few remaining services that a small business will have exposed anymore. So people generally don't host their own web servers on site or anything, so the bad guys know that, so they're going after whatever they can get. And right now it's POP3 and SMTP. And you can see here that I have this whole group. This is a pattern. Now, you see this 182 address here. Well, I saw this pattern, and the user let me know they're being blocked out, and they're locked out, and they couldn't log in. So I've actually set a range to block the range of addresses from those IPs. So when they try to come in again, and you see I've set others here, these are other ranges that are coming in, what happens is if they come in from that address again, they don't get anywhere. They get killed off right at the onset. And they can try and try and try. But the good thing is that you're not overloading the firewall. So they could do all the attacks they want, but at some point the firewall just says, I'm ignoring you. And most of the botnets, most of the bad guys using scripts in that, they have a timeout as well because they don't want to waste time. They want to move on to a juicier target. But when you stop dropping these attacks, they're dropped at the firewall, so they never get to your server, so they're not going to be able to deny your users or do a DDoS on the server itself now. Which this is usually, it can go from that. It goes from active dictionary attacks to active service attacks. So what you want to do is nip this in the bud as soon as you possibly can. And so you see here what I've got. And I had one that was an address. Here we go. We have a 183. This is actually the result. You see that I've got dropped packets from this 183. If it wouldn't scroll so much. Here we go. We can do this. There we go. You see that this is from the range. Remember we had that 182. This is from that range, and I actually set a range, not an individual address, but a range. And I happen to know this is coming from China. And these packets are actually dropped. And you also see that now they're trying to go on to port 23, which is Telnet. That's what happens. It's like, well, something's gone wrong here. You see up here, I've got a drop, and they're going into ICMP, which is basically a ping. This is also a blocked range that I have. And what that means is that, they're saying it doesn't work, so we're going to try something else, and then they're going to give up. And that's fine. They give up, they go away, and we don't have to deal with these people anymore. But you can see that's what the blocked range does. Now, the firewall I have to use here is very rudimentary. It's nothing I'm that proud of. But it has enough facility to let me do what I need to do. So let me get in here and show you. This is the firewall that the small business is using. And of course there's some stuff blurred here because I don't want to make it any easier for the bad guys. But I'll go into the security section, and here's what you see. I've actually have, and this, again, this is old school, and you enterprise guys are probably laughing off your chair right now, but this is all we have to work with. We have very limited resources. We could call this IT on the cheap, but you see, what I've done here is when I get an active attack coming in, I go research that. I go look and see, okay, where is this range coming from? And although it's kind of a blunt force, broad brush attack on my part, if you do individual addresses, that's only going to last so long. Remember, most of these are not individual hosts doing the attacks. It's groups of hosts. It's botnets. It's, in some cases, entire subnets, which means I've got to block subnets. Now, there are known blacklists, that type of thing. This firewall doesn't have the capability to take advantage of any blacklist, so I have to manually do this. But you can see, this is a lot of work, and this is very messy, but I have entire ranges blocked here. And I've looked them up to make sure these aren't ranges that, you know, are going to be anything anyone ever needs. So it takes a little time, but, you know, most of these are coming from countries. This is a local firm. This is a local business. They don't have any clients in China or Turkey or Korea. So I already know that it's pretty safe. I can block these addresses, and it's not going to affect their business. But also, in the same token, I know that these are the ranges. These are the businesses that are in a business. These are the bad guys that are trying to get in. They're coming from here. And you just saw I have a 182 block, and you saw a 183 come in. And that's a perfect example of a compromised subnet that doesn't attack. So in that case, I mean, that's your only recourse. But if you're doing IT on the cheap, this is what you got to do. So I guess the biggest thing to say is use your syslog facilities, review your event logs, do whatever you can to block these people, because that's really your only option. Now, if you have the opportunity to put something even in front of your router or in front of your server that other than your router to deal with this, like a spam firewall or a layer 7 type of filtering, right on, do it. If you can do it, do it. But if you don't have that, this is the poor man's way to try to deal with this problem. The other way to deal with it also is, again, make sure that usernames and passwords are hardened. Don't make them easy to guess, because that's the biggest problem I've had here, is that these bad guys have latched on to one user. And the problem is they've latched on to this one user because he uses his smartphone quite a bit to retrieve email for the firm. He's the only one there that does that. And because of that, it expands the attack surface. So it's nothing he necessarily even did when he was working at the office. It's just his phone, because his phone goes lots of places, and it gets exposed, and they see that, oh, look, that's an easy name to guess, so we're going to do that, and we're going to attack that. That's why. So keep it difficult, keep it kind of weird. You know, if you can use something like Office 365 and let Microsoft deal with this BS, awesome, do that too. But barring that, you're going to be relying on whatever blocking or filtering firewall capabilities you have, your event log management, and just trying to institute best practices for your users. So if this was kind of Security 101, I apologize, but hey guys, not everybody has a multi-million-dollar enterprise to get to play with. Anyway, that's it for today. Hope this was helpful. Have a good one. I'm out.